Junger is an LA-based cardiologist. You got your training at Lenox Hill in New York downstate. So you're a cardiologist, and you started, in an interesting way. You kind of developed sort of a bigger persona in your online and offline programs called Clean. So you are one of the really industry leaders in wellness and detoxification. You have a wonderful supplement brand. I think the way you have packaged and made it easy for clients to cleanse and to detoxify is really nothing short of brilliance. And you also are, an expert in gut health. So, the work that you have done has really been very, very important for my clients and all of our clients. And I was just, getting out my books from you that I've bought over the years, and you started with Clean, and then you went to Clean Gut, and then you have, I'm not sure the order, then you have Clean 7, Clean Eats. And so these are books that belong in everybody's library. So Dr. Junger, thank you so much for joining me, and really welcome.
Pleasure to be with you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So I thought we could start, because you're a great storyteller, and I thought we could start by maybe you relaying a story from your early days in New York as a cardiologist, and how you broke the mold, the doctor mold, to become a leading in your industry of detoxification. What is that story?
So there is no real genius, as you say, right? Even though I thank you for the compliment, but I was just trying to look for solutions for my own problems initially. So I grew up in Uruguay. Uruguay, when I grew up, was very simple. There were no supermarkets. Everybody bought their food at the farmers market, or what looked like a farmers market in that time. And my mom would prepare the food from scratch. Maybe sometimes she would just be preparing food all day long, start in the morning for lunch and then continue until dinner is served. And life was very healthy by default. There were no edible products. Everything was fresh, real food. And also, I grew up in going to a school with a lot of sports. So I was really healthy just by default. And then I went to medical school. Once I graduated, I moved to New York to do my internship and residency in internal medicine, and then my fellowship in cardiology. And the lifestyle was so drastically changed for me. First of all, there was no time for sports. Second, I was eating from the hospital cafeteria, which I understand now as being designed to get people sick. Yeah. And when I on the run, there were vending machines all over the hospital that I would pop a coin and you get a hamburger or something, and then you put it in the microwave oven and you eat it on the run. And when I had a little time, I used to go to the supermarkets, because the supermarkets in New York were, for me, something of the future. I would go there and I would be fascinated by all these packagings and the colors and the fact that I could get a box with a tray inside that it took out and put in a microwave oven. And in 2 minutes, I would have a meal that looked something like what my mom would take all day to prepare. And this fast life, little sleep, lots of stress, eating in this way, I started packing on weight. I started getting really heavy. Then my digestion started getting difficult. Then I started having seasonal allergies, which over the time turned into permanent allergies. And then I started getting depressed. And when I started getting depressed, that's when I started getting kind of scared, because my life was, in paper, fantastic. But I would wake up in the morning with this sense of doom and no stamina, no willingness to do anything. I just wanted to hide in my room and cover myself and sleep all day. And that kind of scared me a little bit, because I didn't understand it. So I took a couple of days off, and I made appointments with some of my teachers or some of the teachers in the hospital, a gastroenterologist, an allergist, and a psychiatrist. And I ended up after a couple of days with 7 prescription medications for 3 diagnoses. I was diagnosed with severe allergies, severe irritable bowel syndrome, and severe depression. And I was given 7 prescription pills. And once I had all the prescriptions in my hand, I looked at them and I had this really strong realization that I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to take pills in order to function. And the other thing was, I didn't want to continue doing that for my patients, because that's the kind of medicine that I was taught and the kind of medicine that I was practicing. Basically, it boiled down to a pill for an ill, or a pill for a symptom, or maybe sometimes more than one pill for a symptom. And that threw me off. I finished my cardiology fellowship and I took off and I went to a monastery in India, because I thought that learning to meditate was going to help me calm my always automatic negative thinking mind. And I spent some time in India, and when I was there, I was directing a group of practitioners, including Ayurvedic medicine doctors, Chinese medicine doctors, naturopathic medicine doctors, chiropractors, hands-on healers, Reiki masters, you name it. Every modality had some representative there. You know, they were all students. They were all students that of yoga, of meditation, that as a service they were practicing whatever the skill they had. And the way that we saw patients there was very organic. We brought whoever was coming to the clinic, and we sat them down in a circle. Every practitioner would ask from their point of view questions, and then at the end we would all discuss what each one of us would do, and then we would combine the different things that everybody brought up in a way that was, feasible for people to do. And sometimes the Ayurvedic doctor had a stronger opinion of what needed to be done. Sometimes I had a stronger opinion. When I saw that we were in an unstable situation, like for example, there was this monk that was overweight and came with unstable angina, with chest pain on exertion, which talks about narrowing in the coronary arteries, or maybe even an unstable clot in the coronary artery. This is an urgent situation that needs a cardiac catheterization, and possibly an angioplasty and a stent or bypass surgery. So that man, I insisted we take to the hospital, and he had an angiogram, and he had blocked arteries, and if we wouldn't have done that, he probably would have died in the ashram, in the monastery. And at that time, the Ayurvedic doctor had a different idea. He wanted to eliminate foods for his dosha, and he wanted, but I said, yeah, we'll do all that after we make sure that his arteries are providing the oxygen that his heart muscle needs. So everybody would pitch in, and then we would make a plan consistent with what everybody would say, and without even having heard of the term integrative medicine. That's what we were practicing there. So when I finished my time in the monastery, I moved back to the States, and I moved to the desert area, to Palm Springs area. I was working in 4 hospitals, admitting privileges in 4 hospitals, and then working in 3 different offices that belonged to this big cardiology practice. And I had no time again for anything. Again, back to eating from the cafeteria, and all the benefits that I had acquired, that I had advanced in terms of my symptoms in India, they came back with a vengeance, right? And I was actually considering starting the medications at that time, because I had a high intensity job with a lot of responsibility, and I couldn't just be sneezing all day long and having bouts of constipation and diarrhea and irritable bowel syndrome, what it looks like. So I was in the middle of considering starting medications, and a friend of mine who I had seen 10 days before in LA stopped by my house in Palm Springs. And when I opened the door and saw this guy, I just couldn't understand. I thought my mind was playing me tricks, because he was 10 pounds or more lighter in just 10 days. And his skin looked clear and his eyes were white and he just was glowing. And I said, dude, what did you do? Did you get plastic surgery? And he said, no, I went to a detox center. I said, wow, I didn't know that you were hooked on drugs. And he said, no, it has nothing to do with drugs. He said, this is about detoxification. And I had never studied detoxification in medical school. So I couldn't make sense of it. So he said, listen, it's just 5 minutes away. Let's just go take a look. So we went there. He introduced me to the owner there, who is from Argentina. And we started talking, and then I started looking, and everybody was glowing there. And the longer they had been there, the higher the intensity of their glow. So I was like, oh my God, there's something here. So the woman said to me, listen, in 10 days, I can get rid of all your symptoms. I said, how would you do that? Well, the program here is directed towards that. And it looked a little bit like hokey pokey to me, because it was just juices and colonics and supplements, and in my mind, having come from medical school and then from training in hospitals, supplements for me were like a joke. We're like, yeah, you drink these things, it maybe has a placebo effect, and then you pee it out, and the body already can, the body knows how to get everything. And
you drank the Kool-Aid.
So
You drank the Kool-Aid, didn't you? You drank the
so I signed up. So I signed up for this program, and within 10 days, I had 0 irritable bowel syndrome, 0 allergies. I was breathing like I did when I was 18, before I traveled to the US, and I lost like 10 kilos, which is like more than 20 pounds in 10 days. And I was blown away. And I just said, how come we don't learn this in medical school? So I became obsessed with understanding what was going on. And at that time, this woman, her name is Susanna, gave me all the books that she had studied from. And they were, Arnold Ehret's Mucusless Diet, and so books that Rise and Shine, and books that were written not by doctors, but by people that had discovered these things. And even though, they were inspiring and they were interesting, I still had my doctor's medical mind that needed some kind of physiology understanding. How is this working physiologically? What is the biological basis of what I was witnessing, right? And that didn't happen until I found the Institute for Functional Medicine. And in a 3-day course, in that course of introduction to functional medicine, it's called the AFMCP, Applying Functional Medicine in Clinical Practice. I was just blown away, and all my library of medical knowledge got rearranged. And I'll explain to you what I mean. When I was in medical school and in my hospital years of training, of course I was taught about the liver. Of course I was taught about the kidneys, the skin, the urinary tract, the gut, the intestines. I was taught about all these things, but I was taught about all these things separately. And some of my friends became liver specialists, some of my friends became kidney specialists, some became skin specialists, but nobody taught me that all these organs and tissues form part of a system, a detoxification system, right? We know about the nervous system, we know about the digestive system, we know about the respiratory system, but we don't really know much about the detoxification system as a system because we haven't thought about it that way. We haven't learned about it that way. But functional medicine really made me understand that all these organs form part of the detoxification system, and they have a very important function, which is there are two sources of toxins in our body: the inner toxins, the endotoxins, which are the toxic molecules and toxic materials that are created from the waste product of the metabolism of our cells, yeah, like lactic acid and uric acid and ammonia and all these things that we know very well in medicine. And we know also how the body gets rid of them, right? And then all the outer toxins called xenobiotics or exotoxins, which are all the chemicals that we are exposed to in our modern life, right? That come in the air we breathe, in the water we drink and shower with, in the cosmetics we apply on our skin, which are absorbed and end up in our blood, in the cleaning products that we use for our homes, but mostly in the foods that we eat, that contain all kinds of chemicals that alone or in combination can cause all kinds of disruptions that end up eventually being diagnosed as diseases, right?
Right.
So when you understand, first of all, what these toxins are, how they end up in your bloodstream, and then how you can support your already existing detoxification system, nutritionally and energetically, you are creating the conditions to really allow the body what is already trying to do all the time, but it can't because it doesn't have the energy to do or the raw materials to do. So understanding that gave me the ability to help people really increase the effectiveness of their detoxification system, and that alone has ramifications in every other system in the body and in health in general. So in a way, I felt like suddenly I was given a magic wand because I designed detoxification programs for people, and and people get better from all kinds of problems. I am still today, 20 years later, discovering new things that detoxification done right can affect beneficially. So that's the story.
That is first of all, you're a wonderful storyteller. And in that story, you demonstrated how life chose you. Your career actually grabbed you and chose you. And that's beautiful for people to see. Really, it's such a, and you also demonstrated what detoxification does.
I am the perfect example of the wounded healer. There are so many people out there. There are so many people out there that suffer from something,
Yeah.
and then or a family member, a loved one suffers from something that Western medicine doesn't have the best answers for, and then so they take off and they start researching, and then and not all of them are doctors. In fact, there's many that are not doctors, but they learn about their problem and they overcome their problem, and then they start teaching other people to do it and become incredible healers. So that was what happened to me. It wasn't a choice. I didn't sit down and say, okay, so what's interesting out there, and what would I like to do? No, I was just desperately looking for a solution for myself. And then, but once I found it, I realized that it could help so many more people in so many different ways.
And you do. It's like, that the wound becomes the wings. So what I'd like to direct our conversation towards now, because this has been so beautifully really exposed in terms of what toxicity really, when you detoxify, what can actually happen to your body. So, we speak about, hormones as being very important for the body. And nobody really talks about detoxification. Now, I'll measure the downstream, metabolites with estrogen and things, but can you talk about how important, or the importance of the gut in terms of actually making hormones work and be safer, and being an integral part to hormones being taken?
And so we need to understand that the hormonal system is not separate from anything else. It's part of the whole, right? And everything is connected. Now, how do detoxification and hormone system connect? In so many ways, right? And I'll tell you just a few, and maybe let you ask me more things about it later. But for example, hormones are bodily compounds that are produced, released into the blood, and affect by the body by tapping into receptors and activating or blocking certain receptors that make cells do things, right? Now, once the hormones are released, the hormones have to be broken down and eliminated. That is part of the detoxification system, right? So when the detoxification system is not working at optimal levels, you can have hormonal imbalances from remnants of hormones that haven't been cleared out. Like, for example, if your liver is cirrhotic, or a fatty liver, or basically you're lacking the nutrients that the liver needs in order to go to take the toxic molecules from from a toxic to non-toxic, and from fat soluble into water soluble, so that they can be eliminated. When that is not working right, let's say you're a man, and men also have estrogen, right? But the estrogen is kept at a low level. But if your liver is not detoxifying it, then your estrogen will increase, and you will be hyperestrogenic, and you would develop a gynecomastia. You have boobs, man boobs, right? Just from an imbalance of the detoxification system, right? Now, there's more ways in which these two systems are connected: the hormonal and the detoxification system. There are many products out there, many edible products out there that have chemicals that mimic certain hormones, right? Like, for example, estrogen mimicking hormones that come in plastics, right? And we eat from plastic, with plastic utensils, we drink from plastic bottles, and we take on these phthalates and BPA and all these chemicals that end up affecting the hormonal system by mimicking their excitation of the hormonal receptors, right? So if you're not avoiding these chemicals, and if you're not supporting your liver to get rid of whatever comes in, then you're going to have imbalances of the detox of the hormonal system as well, right? But the whole thing goes even further. For example, when toxic molecules accumulate, they also trigger the body to generate and retain fat. And we know now that increased body fat content affects hormonal balance as well, right? It also affects the inflammatory system, right? And when the detoxification system is not working at par, then inflammation ensues, and inflammation is fed. It's like throwing wind into the fire, and then the wildfire catches on, right? So when inflammation is systemic, which many times is a consequence of a dysfunctional detoxification system, then the inflammatory system steals away not only energy from every other system, but also resources, nutrients, and so every system will be affected, right? If inflammation is turned on, hormones are not being produced or utilized in the right way.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a huge connection between, hormone effectivity, all of our health and the gut. So, in functional medicine, because that's really my path too, maybe 20 years ago or a little more, just where I was totally, it's kind of like the light went on in terms of my education with functional medicine. So in functional medicine, people have spoken for a long time about the gut being the second brain. I mean, does that sit with you at all? Could you talk a little bit about that, or is that an older concept?
Well, I wrote a book about it, right? So when I went to medical school, and probably you too, and we talk about the brain, and we're taught about the brain, everybody points to the skull and and that mass of neurons that are inside here, right? But there's neurons everywhere, and now we're talking about different brains. We're talking about the brain in the gut. We're talking about the brain in the heart. There's a whole nervous system in the heart, and the way that we think about the nervous system in the heart is only because this nervous system in the heart is responsible for the excitation, for the electrical impulses that make the heart beat, that make the cells of the heart contract, right? And they have to be in a certain way. They start in the AV node, and then they go through the atrium, and then they go through the bundle of His, and when we have a whole description, the anatomy and the function of the nervous system of the heart. But there's things about it that we still don't understand. For example, some heart surgeons have done surgeries, transplant surgeries, and put hearts on other people that the recipient later has memories and knowledge that the donor was experiencing, right? There's Stephen Gundry is a very known surgeon. Now he veered off and talks about lectins and other things, right? But when he was a full-on heart surgeon, and I met him at that time, he would tell me stories about how he transplanted a heart into this guy that later on knew where something was hidden of the guy that used to own that heart before, and he contacted the family, and they actually confirmed that this was true. So yeah, I don't even name the brains anymore. I don't call the gut brain the second brain, right? Or this one the first brain. They're all brains, and they're all really important. Now, in size, the number of neurons around and within the intestines are bigger than the number of neurons within the brain in your skull, right? So there is a huge brain in the intestines that has many different functions. One of them is coordinating the muscle contraction of the different parts of your body so that you can have actually a moving peristaltic contraction, right? It starts in the top, and then it moves. When you see a snake eating a big thing, and then you see the thing just traveling through, that's what's happening in our intestines. Also, our intestines are like a snake, right? And things get moved forward or downwards in the intestines so that they can pass through the different parts and be processed, the food be processed, right? But the nervous system in the intestines has many other functions. One of them that I consider incredibly important is the whole intuitive part of our life, our intuition. Our intuition is more related to the neurons and the nervous system in the intestines, in the gut, than to this one. And that's why we have these things in our language that point towards that, like, you know, trust your gut, or your gut feeling, or, you know, I feel it in my intestines, or I feel it in my gut, right? And that that knowledge, that information that part of the nervous system gives you is very important. You know, we are teaching everybody to trust their gut, right? So your gut feeling, your intuition can save your life, because it can tell you of dangers that are coming up, you know, without having them even happened yet, right? Like, how many people have a bad gut feeling and just decide to change their flight, and then the plane crashes? Just to name one way in which your gut feelings can save your life, right? But also it can tell you, you know, who is lying to you, and who should you be hanging out with or not, right? So this nervous system in the intestines, it's really, really important. And there's many other functions that this nervous system fulfills, right? In terms of coordinating all the different aspects of digestion, different aspects of detoxification, right? So yeah, the brain in the gut is an important one.
Yes, and there are hormones being made too in the gut cells, like serotonin and you know, various different hormones that are so critical too for. And I was just thinking, you know,
Yes, the gut and the gut and the associated organs, right? Like in the liver, glucagon and all these hormones that are very strongly related to or part of the digestive system.
yeah, but I think the thing is that you have really been so clear about is that when the gut and when we, you know, is unhealthy and we don't have the correct microbiome, which I'd like to talk about next, it doesn't work. You know, really the gut shuts down. It causes systemic effects, you know, at every really cell in the body. So
The way I begin my second book, Clean Gut, is by telling the story of how I used to follow my gardener when I was a little boy and lived in Uruguay, and he was a very wise man, and he had this like presence that I just loved hanging around him. And so when he used to come to my garden, I used to follow him around, and I remember very specifically there was one tree in my house that it was this yellow fruit. What's it called?
a mango
It
or
looks like a no. It looks like a peach, but it's just yellow.
apricot.
Anyways,
And it's
apricot. Yeah, apricot.
apricot. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So we had an apricot tree in the house, and the leaves were all they looked sick. They had this brownish reddish spots in the leaves, right? And the fruit wasn't growing right. And so we went, and my mother was very sad because this was our favorite tree. And so we went there. Fermin was his name, and Fermin looked at it and took a look at the leaves, and immediately went into the bottom, and he started looking at the soil and the roots, right? He uncovered a part of the root, and then he did some changes in the soil. He put some products. I don't remember what they were. I also remember he put a copper wire around the base of the tree, and I still don't know why he did that. But it turns out that within a couple of months, the tree was completely healthy again, right? So I asked him, why, if the problem is in the tree, did you go to look at the roots? And he said, that's where the problems are. The leaves and the fruit are just a manifestation of what happens within the roots, right? And this is exactly what happens to the human beings. Human beings are like walking trees, and our roots are in our intestines, are our intestines, because that is where the tree sucks its nutrients and its water from the root and sends it to the trunk, through the trunk, to the leaves and the fruit. And we do the same. We suck our nutrients through the intestines, and we send it through our arterial tree into the different organs and skin, and which are the fruits and the leaves, right? So when the root is healthy, and when the soil is healthy, and the soil in this comparison is our food, then everything is healthy, right? And this is my experience as a doctor. I go to the root. I go like Fermin. I go to the soil and the root. And what is the soil and the root? The food and the intestine.
Well, that is very, very well said. And I think that that is really the basis of all health. So there's, hormones, there's, cellular health, gut health. And what about restoring the gut? What would be your top few, let's say 3 or 4 major things to restore the gut? And I want to talk about your clean program right after this, because that is so important in terms of really, do you want to talk about that now maybe? Because that might be the answer to that.
Oh, let's talk about whatever you want. The gut, when you think about the gut, you have to think about it as you think of your skin, right? Because your skin comes like this, and then it turns inside and it turns into the gut, right? So the gut and the skin are very, very similar. Now, what happens when you get holes in your skin? You can get infections, you can get all kinds of things, right? So it's important for you to have your skin intact and covering all your body, right? In the same way, it's important for your gut to be intact, right? This is what we call a gut wall or intestinal wall integrity. And when the integrity of the intestinal wall is broken, you develop what we are known now as leaky gut or hyperpermeability, right? Now, if your skin is full of holes, right? What are the 2-3 things that you have to make sure of? First of all, that it's not dirty, right? And so second of all is that you're not rubbing and moving it too much. You probably put a bandage or something just to let the skin rest, right? Not let things rub against it, right? Because if you have holes in your skin and you get some sand and you start rubbing it, right? You're never gonna heal. And it's the same in the gut. You have to give it a rest, and you have to throw things in that won't rub that skin, like grains, like all these chemical products that we put in our edible stuff, which it's not even food anymore. We eat all kinds of edible products, right? So resting the intestines through fasting or through a very strict elimination diet or through liquid diets, that's one way of resting your inner skin, your gut, and letting it heal. And then you have to provide the nutrients that the cells, because the cells of your skin are always growing, and there's new cells coming in underneath, and then the old cells are shed, and that's the same thing that's happening in the gut. But for you to create these new cells, then you need the nutrients that are needed for that, right? For example, one of them being L-glutamine, right? So if you are going to give your gut a rest, you also have to provide the nutrients needed, right? So those are the basic principles of gut repair.
Yes. So what about things like probiotics, digestive enzymes? Is that part of gut health, or is it individualized?
Well, it's definitely part of gut health, and probiotics now. The whole idea of probiotics now is going through a big shift, right? Yeah. We used to think that throwing in as many billions of bacteria in the gut was the best way of doing things, right? But as it turns out, we are now falling into the realization that may not be the best way, right? So some people are putting more importance on the prebiotics, on the food that you give the bacteria in your gut, because certain types of foods will feed and make the bad bacteria thrive. Certain kinds of food will actually kill those and let the good bacteria thrive, right? So the prebiotic, the foods that you eat, are now, in my mind, a way more important issue in the in the whole gut health and microflora or intestinal flora than, you know, bombarding yourself with billions of probiotics.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear you chime in on that because a lot of people are confused now. So tell us about your clean program. I've heard about this for so many years. I've referred so many women and men to your program, and I just, you know, just a little encapsulation because I want them to do this program. I think it's critical. So can you just explain a little bit about
So,
it?
so the clean program is what I would have loved to have found when I got sick with irritable bowel syndrome, allergies, and depression. Because basically, it is the culmination of everything that I found, the integration, the combination of everything that I found in order to heal myself, right? So it's a 21-day program that creates the conditions for your body to deal with the problems that most people are dealing with these days: an accumulation of toxins, an accumulation of mucus and fat as a consequence of that, irritation, oxidative stress, inflammation. These are all consequences, very simple and natural consequences of not having a detoxification system that really works optimally, right? In Ayurvedic medicine, in Chinese medicine, and in many other millenary forms of healing, there is this concept of disease originating from the accumulation of toxicity, of toxins, right? And in Ayurvedic medicine, the toxicity is called ama, and it's not even only the molecules that are toxic, but it's also toxic thoughts and toxic feelings, toxic emotions, right? The accumulation of ama is at the basis of most diseases, if not all diseases.
Yeah, well, it's a
The
beautiful
the
program.
clean the clean program is a 21-day program that basically creates the conditions for your body uh, to have the detoxification system supported, but also as well to calm down inflammation, to repair the gut, to establish or re-establish hormonal balance, because all of these things are connected, right? And basically it is um, it's replacing 2 meals a day with a liquid meal. So breakfast and dinner is a liquid meal, and lunch is from a set list of foods that you can eat, and then there's a list of foods to avoid. This list of foods was developed over decades by the Functional Medicine Institute based on what are the findings in a ton of people in terms of what foods cause acidity, mucus formation, inflammation, allergic reactions, sensitivity reactions, right? So anything that certain foods can trigger, or for example, even foods that are healthy otherwise, but contain certain compounds that affect you negatively. Like, for example, nightshades, right? They contain solanine, which activates inflammation mostly in the joints, right? So people with arthritis and joint problems uh, really benefit from discontinuing nightshades for a while. And like that, there's many other foods, right? That have a different factors, different compounds that affect you negatively when you consider the detoxification system.
It's critical for health. It's critical for well-being, for prevention of disease. Now, I just want to, we're coming to the end of our time, and I'm sorry, they're starting to tell me, hurry up, wrap up. But I mean, this is so interesting. Could you just put on the hat of the cardiologist just for 1 minute? I know you never take it off, and we're all one, but what about testosterone and heart attacks? What about testosterone in terms of the heart? Is it bad?
Well,
Any opinion on that?
Well, there are studies now that show that the low testosterone is a risk factor for heart disease, right? So that is, I think, and you probably know way more than me about these things, right? But that's being very clear through many recent studies that low testosterone levels affect you negatively, not only in the heart. Like, for example, I recently woke up one morning with this incredible, excruciating shoulder pain, right? And I couldn't even move my arm. So I went to this really great doctor in LA that takes care of all these athletes. And basically, he saw me for 5 minutes. He says, "Ah, that's a frozen shoulder." And I said, "What? Did it happen because of trauma?" You know, sometimes I lift my kids, and he said, "No, has nothing to do with trauma. This is a sudden decrease in either testosterone or thyroid hormone levels,
Thyroid.
right?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was like, whoa, and how does this happen? Well, he didn't really understand the whole pathophysiology of how it happened, but this is something that's being observed, right? And in the same way, low testosterone is one of the risk factors for certain heart diseases.
Well, thank you.
You and I have discussed this many
Yes, we've
times
discussed
before.
this. We've discussed it. So listen, going to the end of your life, you have a very exciting life. You're actually, we're talking to each other from Mexico now. You have a wonderful, very devoted life. You're at the end of your life. What made it good? What can you share to help other people, really kind of tap into the importance of their life? What would you say about that?
So what I say is, and I see now on Instagram and social media, everybody's talking about, all the supplements and all the, like vitamin C and what is good for COVID and zinc and quercetin and B vitamins. I mean, everybody is looking at things, and everybody wants what is medically proven, right? And I was looking the other day at this famous doctor, and I'm not going to name names because he actually does a great job, but he was saying, recent studies prove that gratitude is so beneficial, right? And I said, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of this of this
You are
idea that
grateful.
everything has to be medically proven. I don't need any medically proven data to tell me that gratitude is good for my life. I don't need any double-blind placebo studies to tell me that having loving relationships is good for my health. I don't need any medical research to tell me that sleeping well benefits me. So let's get off this race of having to prove everything medically, and let's get on more of this human experience that we are here to have, and most of us are not having, which is really an experience of being fully present. Because only when you are fully present, you can establish deep, loving relationships. You can establish peace of mind. You can acquire or reach peace of mind, and everything that from there trickles on in terms of your health, right? So meditation and other practices to become fully present. That is what I'm really, really interested in my life, and transmitting to my patients, because I see that sometimes even lacking certain nutrients, even having inflammation, even having a cardiovascular disease, or whatever it is that you have, being fully present can ameliorate the symptoms and can even resolve them without having the vitamins that you're lacking. Presence itself can heal. So that's what I'm really now looking into and thinking, how can I bring this to my patients and to my own life in a stronger way.
So well said. My heart is wide open. You've really given of yourself in such a generous way, and I am grateful. And we don't need a medical blind study to say that. So thank you so much. And may we all detoxify and cleanse and glow with light and be present.